Yo, yo, yo. Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Nana Yaa Yeboaa Show. Today, I have with me a beautiful, beautiful, gentle soul, the author of Ayenife. Did I get the pronunciation right?
It's called Ayofe, actually.
Ayofe. Oh, my. I butchered it. I
Yes, it's
butchered
a
it.
Yoruba
The-
name. No, no, it's
Okay.
understandable.
Ayofe. Okay. Oh, my goodness, girl. I just started by butchering the name. So
It's okay.
Feyi Aina is an author, physiotherapist,
Yes,
mother, wifey. Holy
yes,
moly,
yes.
what aren't you?
I'm not an engineer or an
You are not
IT
an
software
engineer.
designer.
You are a home engineer. You engineer
Yes,
the home so that everything goes on well. And I read in your bio that how do you call it? You love to read and you love to cook, travel, and all the good things that come with life.
yeah,
Well, I must say a very big thank you for reaching out, for saying yes to this interview. Like I told one of my other authors, I am so honored and privileged to have this beautiful African writers, that are transforming the landscape and rewriting African, literature from an African perspective.
perspective.
So I must say a big thank you and congratulations on all your writing. Yeah. So
Thank you.
let's get into it with who you are. Every individual has a life story of being or working as, walk us through your childhood.
Okay. Okay, like every writer, I think I started to read when I was about 4, 5, and I loved stories. I loved words. I think English and English composition were my best subjects, and
Hmm.
I also enjoyed. I was a very quiet and introspective child, more
Hmm.
you know reserved than outgoing, and
Hmm.
it was funny. I remember whenever we go to parties, my mom would take my siblings and I to parties, and I would go into the house and look for the library. And all the kids are outside playing games, having fun, getting to know each other. So I'm in the library looking for books, trying to at least finish a novel before I leave the party. So I've always been a child who loved to read and write. And then I think I started to write poetry when I was about 9, and I always lived in my head in this imaginative world.
Yeah.
I would read stories and then I would invent my own endings to
Hmm.
stories. And I discovered that through reading, I learned a lot of words. And
Hmm.
my English composition was always just fantastic. The teachers would say, "Oh, you have a wonderful imagination." And so I think that's where my love for writing and reading began. And I just took it up from there. Um,
Beautiful.
so,
Yeah.
well,
So, like, how was family growing up like for you and the influences of your parents into you being, that kind of child?
child. Okay. I would say that I was an introvert in the midst of extroverts. My mom is an extrovert. My dad is a sanguine kind of person.
Hmm.
They love parties. They love, entertaining guests. It wasn't my cup of tea, but to an extent, yes, it wasn't, because it was challenging. I always wanted to be in my head, and I was constantly
Hmm.
pulled out of my head,
Yeah.
forced to, live life and uh, hang around with everybody, including my siblings.
Hmm.
My mom told me one story. I don't even remember, but she said she came home one day. We were holiday, the summer holiday.
Mm-hmm.
So we were all at home, and she came home to check on us. That time she could leave work for like 30 minutes because she walked not too far from the house. So she would just come and check on us. And she came in, and my siblings were all screaming and yelling and having fun and tumbling. And I was somewhere in the corner
Just
reading a novel in the midst of that noise. And she called me and said, "You're reading and your siblings are scattering the whole living room." I'm like, I didn't even see.
I'm in a different
So
world.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I feel I thank God every day that I grew up in such an extroverted family, because um it helped me to come more out of myself, taught me how to interact with people and be more social,
Yes.
kind of like. And I think it helped to balance me a little bit, because I was a little bit too much on the introvert scale. So uh, that's it. And then I had lots of aunties who would buy me books
Mm-hmm.
as gifts for
Mm-hmm.
birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And I discovered that I appreciated those more than toys or any other thing that anybody
Mm-hmm.
bought. So I think I've always been a bookish
Mm-hmm.
person, kind
Okay.
of like growing
They
up.
didn't call you book
So,
long.
well, no, no. The only thing is, my dad used to be surprised because
Yeah.
by the time I was a teenager, he would give me, this James Hadley Chase, what other books? Books by John Grisham.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Who else did I read back then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is, he would give me the book in the morning, and by the time he comes back
You
from work,
done.
I'm done with it, and it's like, "Are you serious? Did you really read that?" I'm like, "Yes, I
You're
did."
voracious reader.
So,
Yes. Oh my
yes,
goodness.
I consumed every
Oh my
single thing.
goodness. I found
And I have a feeling that's why my stories are long, because I find it really difficult writing
short
short stories.
stories. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
wow. Whilst you say that, I was thinking about when I was a teenager. It's like me and books,
Yeah.
and actually, my dad did. How do we call it? He lived here in North America whilst I was in Ghana.
Okay.
So, he used to buy a lot of books and send them over. So my
Oh,
influences were like the Agatha Christie's, yes,
yes.
John Grisham, and
Enid Blyton.
yes, and so
I read a lot of Enid Blyton as a
I
kid.
had a couple of Hardy Boys, and oh, it's like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness. And then
Nancy Drew.
Nancy Drew, yes. And then I was
Yeah.
also introduced to the African Writers series as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the beautiful ones are not yet born, and then
The
the
Concubine.
concubine.
That was my favorite.
There is this, a letter to something, so long, a letter. I think Bucci Ebeta.
Oh, God.
Yes. Oh my goodness. And so, and those people drove me to African stories, and there is a
Mm-hmm.
uniqueness to African stories that
Terry.
yes, the first book that I really got my mind was the palm wine drinkard.
Drinkard,
Yes, it's
yes.
like
Amos Tutuola.
Tutuola. Yes, it's like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, oh my goodness, that guy just bamboozled my.
Yes.
It was great. Yeah. This is not about me. You've just, this is not about me. It is
I'm just
about,
taking you
yes,
back.
you just take me back on the memory lane. That is so beautiful. So let's get to
Yeah.
your book. And how do you say, Ayofe?
Iron Fair.
Ayofe, Ayofe,
Okay.
Ayofe. That
Yes, I know that
Ayofe has a meaning.
yes, it does.
What does Ayofe
Yes,
mean?
it means beloved,
Oh,
or the one. It's a Yoruba name,
yes.
I think, for this particular book, because I wanted that historical feel, and I wanted to. Okay, for me, let's talk a little bit about my writing. I love to use African names in my stories,
Mhm,
because growing up, I read a lot of you know, English novels,
mhm,
American novels, and then when I started to read some of the um, African novels, I
mhm,
would see English names, not all of them, but
mhm.
a lot of them. So I kept thinking, why can't we have our own names? Let our own names ring out.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that when I write,
Mm-hmm.
I will mostly use African indigenous names.
Mm-hmm.
So for this particular book, Ayofe,
Mm-hmm.
it means Ayofe is a name, it's a Yoruba name, it's an old Yoruba name. You don't find too many people bearing that name in recent times. I've seen one or two, but it's
Mm-hmm.
rare. But it's a deep name with a deep meaning. It means the one that I have chosen to bestow my love.
Oh wow.
So most of the names in the book are long. I know that a lot of people told me, oh, there were so many names, but they took me back to, really deep indigenous Yoruba names.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided, because I couldn't. I'm bad at titling my books, so I couldn't. When it was my working title. I just put
Yes.
the name of the titular character as my
Mm-hmm.
working title, and then at the end of the day, I decided, let me go with this. It's
Mm-hmm.
a lovely story. It's about her anyway,
Yes.
and I think it just worked.
Yes. Beautiful. Um, normally many people will write about, the male character in the, novels because for once we have been colonized as patriarchal, and as you say, you are in a country that says fatherland. So it's always the
Yes.
I hope we don't get into trouble, oh.
I hope so too. No, no, no. The narrative is changing, so
Yes,
I don't think we
yes.
should get into too much trouble.
Yes, we've always kind of geared towards this male figure, and this
Yeah.
is a female character, and a female character, and there are themes that you go into in this book, which is marriage, love and duty, and truth. So
Yeah.
let's get to the marriage part. First, give us a summary of what this book is about. Where are you coming from as the author, and the different aspects of marriage, love, and duty, and truth, because of its historical fiction and the how do you call the detectiveness,
Yeah.
if that is a
Of the
word.
story.
Yeah. Hmm.
Well, okay. So, at first I wanted to write. Okay, I started thinking about, like, I love historical novels because they help us delve into our history, way things, or rather, I think a
Hmm.
lot about what happened, where did we come from as Africans, how did we migrate down to the west part of Africa. So because I think a lot in that way, I try to think
Hmm.
about how life must have been back
Hmm.
then. And also, I wanted to write a strong female character. I so
Hmm.
Ayofe is the first part of a African historical fantasy novel. There are two parts of it, and it follows the life of a fictional kingdom uh,
Hmm.
called Agbode. It's of course based on of a Yoruba kingdom. And I
Hmm.
started thinking that, okay, I had this. Okay, let me start with this. I had this thought in my head that I remember something that I read about when I was young, in
Hmm.
living in Lagos,
Hmm.
where women were forced to drink potions
Hmm.
to, like, if a husband
Husband
dies,
dies.
and
Yes,
then
yes, yes,
yes, and
yes.
they're wondering, oh, did the wife kill the husband? Okay, we're going to wash his body, and then you drink the
And
water.
then
If nothing happens
yes,
to you, then you did
yes.
not. And I started thinking, that's ridiculous. I mean, that
I,
is ridiculous.
funny enough,
And
I
so
don't think it's only to Nigeria, this concept. I think it flows along to in
West
Ghana,
Africa,
West Africa as well. And this,
yeah,
even up to now, there's this preconceived
yes,
notion that when a husband dies, it's the wife's fault. I've
fault.
walked that journey before, that I've been blamed because, a partner
Oh,
went deceased.
oh,
And then when the woman dies, it's the husband's fault. It's like
it's
people,
exactly.
So
Yeah,
that
it,
is
it,
a part
it's
of our culture that really, for lack of a better word, annoys me a lot. That
yes.
blame factor.
That
That
blame.
blame, yes.
Yeah, so I think that was the first thing that sparked my
Mm-hmm.
desire to write this novel. I started wondering, okay, how did they used to come up with, if there's a murder, or something has happened, or there's a crime
Mm-hmm.
has been committed, that they will just, so I started thinking, and I realized that most of the time they would just rely on the gods of the land to decide
Mm-hmm.
whether the person was guilty or not guilty, or just like in the case of the poor widow, asking her to
Mm-hmm.
drink some kind of potion, and then
Mm-hmm.
if she's okay, then she's not guilty, and if she dies, then she's guilty. Not taking into the fact that you don't even know the contents of that potion, and
Yes.
so the premise is that there's this Ayofel is a princess of this land where
Mm-hmm.
that is what they do. And when there's a
Yes.
crime that has been committed, there's a potion that has been created by the tribunal
Mm-hmm.
council of the land, and then
Mm-hmm.
you drink, and then if you are not guilty, you don't die. But
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, everybody that drinks that potion
It
actually
dies.
dies.
That
So
means the story is lost.
exactly. So the story starts when a prisoner that has been condemned to drink the potion, the
Mm-hmm.
daughter runs to Ayofe, who is the
Yeah.
princess of the land, and asks her, "Hey, I need help. My dad is
Mm-hmm.
going to die very soon." And she's like, "No, if he drinks the potion and he's not guilty, he won't die." And she's like, "No, who?" So her cry for help for her father
Yes.
starts her to thinking that this is
Mm-hmm.
wrong, that we need to
Yes.
investigate this crime. And then, in the midst of begging for help, she also reveals that her father was somewhere else, a
Mm-hmm.
place that was forbidden to the people. So, the reason why the father doesn't want to tell anybody that he was somewhere else was because he was in a place that he was not supposed to have been in. So
Do or
that
die.
starts Iron Fair. Sorry?
Do or die.
Do or die, yes. So that
Mm-hmm.
starts Ayofe thinking, no, we need to investigate this. We can't just ask him to drink a potion. There has to be more.
Mm-hmm.
So I wrote a little bit. I was just thinking about the story, and I wrote some things down. So I wanted to read that the novel Ayofe hangs on the premise that in the African historical times, truth
Mm-hmm.
finding was an important but candid waste of time and resources,
Mm-hmm.
and quick methods were required, and the archaic ways of discovering the culprits was based on the worship of gods and deities, most
Mm-hmm.
of whom were the ones that determine their laws, their
Mm-hmm.
traditions, and their customs.
Mm-hmm.
So, determining how a crime was committed and why the crime was committed and who was truly guilty fell on a council of chosen elders. And, you know, it is whatever they say it is. So
Mm-hmm.
Ayonfe wanted to challenge this status quo in
Mm-hmm.
her, land. So
Yeah.
she goes to now. Prior to that, the father had tried to marry her off in alliance to so
Mm-hmm.
many princes from different towns, but she says no because she's a strong-willed, strong-minded person, and
Mm-hmm.
no one can make her do whatever she doesn't want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
the king knows
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So also the king wants this alliance with this particular kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
and Ayonfe unfortunately had fallen in love with the captain of the army of her land. It's a forbidden love story as well. And in trying to help this prisoner's daughter and the prisoner out, she goes to the captain and asks him to investigate the crime.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole story is about the process of finding out who actually killed the chief
Committed the
that died.
crime. Yeah.
Yes, and then she's had to work closely with the person that she's in love with, who her father must not hear that she's in love with, and
Okay.
that's, I think, the premise
Yes.
of the story.
Yes. The how do we call it? Whilst you were talking, this looking, the interrelatedness of the gods in African life. It's one thing that I have, come across quite a bit. And I am really hoping to have a conversation with this guy on African spirituality. Did
Okay.
you consciously think about African spirituality in truth finding when you were writing this book? Because the
So,
gods, yes, the gods are not far removed from everyday life, is a life with the gods, with spirituality. and it's like the African breathes and lives spirituality. We are one with nature as well as nature is one with us. Were you thinking in those terms? Or
Yeah, yeah, yes, to some extent. It was
mm,
the reason why I decided to write the book anyway, to
mm,
kind of like because we're very superstitious as a people. And I think that superstition comes from, our old religions and our old way of life. And
mm,
finding out that we're now living in the present, current times, seeing that there are kind of like other ways, like because the story was, I wanted it to be kind of like a detective story. I
mhm,
want to disprove that idea of people drinking potions to prove that, they were not guilty or guilty of something. So I did
mhm,
factor it in, but I was also
mhm,
trying to get into the space of where we are as Africans today, being
today.
that the Western way of life has, influenced us in so many
Mhm,
ways, and
mhm,
so many things that we did in the past we no longer do. And
mhm,
also because moving away from that a bit, I started to think that because the Western way of life has influenced us, it has entered into our politics, our
mhm,
government,
mhm.
everything. We no longer think that our kings, our old king, because we still have kings here in
Yes.
Nigeria, but they are not as held in awe as they were back in the day. And we,
Mm,
we find that the governments and the governing systems we have today have come with a lot of corruption. There is no truth telling. Justice is like a farce, honestly, because like I said, the book was initially titled the Love and Courage series. It's still the Love and Courage series because it takes courage and boldness to not go with the flow, because Ayofe was determined she's not going to go with the flow of how they'd always
mhm,
done things, and
mhm,
she wanted justice to prevail. She wanted the real culprit, to go to be held accountable for it. And
mhm.
we find that the government, at least you heard about our recent election and everything that happened and everything that happens in Nigeria. So I was trying to move away, even though I know it's about the spirituality of Africans and the gods and how they ruled the people back then. I also
Mhm.
wanted to tie it to what was happening currently today in
Okay.
our society,
Mhm,
where you know truth telling and justice, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and
mm.
speak the truth and be honest in the face of everything that we're going through.
They should bring back the potion.
Perhaps, I
No,
don't know.
but you know what? This is, I was having a conversation with somebody, and we'll get back to your book. I was having a conversation with
Mhm.
somebody about, African spirituality. And because we are afraid of our own spirituality, our own demons, and we know how, quote unquote, our gods work.
Yes.
Yes. So when this the Bible or the Quran is for, quote unquote, forgiven, especially the Bible. When you commit a sin and you pray to God, you'll be forgiven. But in our spirituality, ah, you see that deity. If you wrong it, you wrong that person that you are not supposed to wrong. And they
True.
go to that deity. Whether subconsciously, psychologically, or not, we went to that deity. It will kill you by yourself. So I think the Africans should go back to where it is, and then all this corruption and everything.
Maybe. But the truth
I
is,
think it worked
even
for us. So
I think back then people were more afraid, of just like you said, of doing anything wrong because they know, if the God should handle me, I'm in trouble.
um,
But
in Akan, with they will say Bibi Woriasi. We know there's existence of something greater than us when it comes to spirituality. So therefore we are behaving. But when it comes to the Bible and religion, we know we'll be forgiven. So we will even swear and still lie because we know we are not going to die. So
but but
let's leave our
unfortunately,
matter on the side.
yeah, unfortunately, there's a day of judgment for God. He just gives people a long rope, like, look, you have time to repent, change your ways and all that. And people abuse it, unfortunately. They abuse the grace of God. I
That
think
is
that's what's happening.
yes. Beautiful. Hi, guys. If you have watched us, I'm coming into the middle of this conversation. I am with Feyi Aina, author of Ayofe, a beautiful historical African fiction. If you've not subscribed to this channel, please do so. And please look up this book, Ayofe, in bookstores in Ghana, in Nigeria, around the world, or Google her name, Feyi Aina, and then you will find some information. But we'll put some information down in the how do you call it, so that you can look for it. So please help us support our African writers. I am very, very passionate about you guys. I love the stories coming out, and it's like, if I don't have the time to sit and write, I definitely have the time to read your books and have conversations with you. Let's change and transform the African story. And that is exactly what you guys are doing. So I think some of the my questions have we've even kind of
Yeah.
gone over it. Yes. Um but I'm going to ask you a general question in your writing, because you also write poems, and you've had other books that you've written. Are there any specific messages or themes you want to convey through, like even this are your poems and your writing? Are there specific themes that as an author you find popping up?
Okay. I think for me, one of the reasons why I started to go into the romance genre is because I started to look around me and I found out that a lot of relationships and marriages were failing in one way or the other. And I
Mm-hmm.
started to think back to or think around the theme of why. And so
Mm-hmm.
I decided that if I was going to write in the romance genre, I was going to kind of like try to address this issue, because
Mm-hmm.
some of the issues that people have in marriage that leads to marriage breakdown and divorce, because the rates are going higher, even in the church, unfortunately. And looking back, I realized that some of the issues start from the point of courtship, picking the wrong person, or not understanding that marriage is a commitment, or that it's for a matured person. Also looking at the fact that people don't understand that everyone has a strength and a weakness. And then when you come into that
Mm-hmm.
marriage relationship, that same thing that attracted you, that was a strength, now becomes like an issue in some cases. So I started to write my like for me, I write clean romance anyway. I don't want to focus so much on the physical aspect of intimacy. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to, shine the light on the kind of things you look out for when you're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about getting married to someone. The courtship of, I have two books I'd like to talk about. Like there's Love's Indenture, that's on Okada Books. It's
Yes.
on Okada Books or BAM Books on the e-platform. And Love's Indenture is about a young lady who had issues with her dad. She was always naughty and troublesome, and the father gets upset and decides to marry her off, like an arranged marriage, something. And then she's in this
Yes.
relationship because they have a deal that if you can stay in that
Mm.
relationship for 1 year, then I will sign you back up,
Yes.
because the father is a very rich man. I will put you back in my
Mhm.
inheritance. So she decides to,
Mhm.
okay, let's go with this. I can always divorce the guy at the end. And then she starts this relationship
Mhm.
with this guy, and then they begin to fight. There's this push and pull. And at the end of the day, she realizes man, I don't want to, leave this relationship. So the theme is all about, when you get married, you really need to learn to study the person that you're
Mhm.
married to. And then you need to realize from the beginning that this is a commitment, and marriage is like a
Mhm.
school. So the second
Mhm.
book is Love Happens Eventually, about a young single girl who is trying to get married, because every time she goes for family functions, they're asking her, "Where's your husband?" You see, all her. In fact, she's the oldest of her siblings. All her siblings are either married or about to get married, and it's become this is something we see commonly in our society. So
Yes, that is right.
yeah, so my premise
Mhm.
for that particular book was the person that, there are sometimes that people are not married because there was someone who really they could have gotten married to, but they never considered that that person would be the one.
Yes.
So that's the premise of that
Yes.
particular story, that you don't set your
Mhm.
sights too high. The person that may be the one for you might be just around you. All because you're looking
Yes.
at, oh, does he have money? Does he have a car?
Yes.
Is he rich?
Is
And
he
is he tall?
tall?
Is he
Yes.
dark? Is he
Yes.
handsome? All
Yes.
these things,
Yes.
that all these
Yes. Yes.
lists that we give to ourselves.
Ah.
So I think those are the themes I find coming up.
Mhm.
I always want to write to
Mhm.
address, issues. I want you to read my book and go away with something that, you're in a
Yes.
fictional world, you're reading to escape from life and its wahala and
Yeah.
troubles.
There are
But at the
lessons.
same
Yes.
time, there are lessons that you take away, kind of like,
Hey,
so.
she said Wahala.
Yes, wahala.
Wahala day.
Nigeria, Nigeria is full of a lot of wahala, and like I said, we are surviving
But
daily.
that is why, and that is why either you write about it or you become a comedian or you
Exactly. Or
sing
you sing
about it,
about it.
because
It's one of the three.
it's one of the three. It's all a creative endeavor, because if you don't,
Yes.
which is the closest psychiatric hospital, you end
You,
up there.
yes, yes. That's why they used to call, like, Africans are usually happy even in the midst of poverty and the midst of, all the things that happen
Wait till
to
you
us. Well,
ah, you get small chop, you get roof, you get small
what are you
money.
looking for?
Hallelujah. What are you looking for? Tomorrow will bring whatever tomorrow brings. We still have to live.
Yeah,
Yeah. Eh, if you go ask somebody, it's like, so because of this, I should not live.
yeah.
They have to live. Yes.
They do.
Resiliency. It is resiliency. That is beautiful. Um, so we did talk about authors, but we didn't writers, different writers, but we didn't talk about specific writers. So my next
Ah,
question to you is, yes, give me two or three top African writers that you think or you believe are instrumental to you. I don't want the Igbo
no,
ones.
there are no Igbo words. How do I do this without? There are more than three. Am I allowed to mention five?
Yes, you are.
There are
Please,
more than
you are.
three.
I was being modest.
Yeah,
That's
there are
why.
so many writers
you
that
see that.
I
You see
admire.
the Ghanaian.
Yes, there are many writers I admire. And I finally remembered the Ghanaian author, Nana Pra.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Nana
okay.
Pra writes, and then MP Braye. I don't know if I got the names right. Nana Pra and MP
No,
Braye. I'm not sure if I got their names right, but they are Ghanaian and they
I'm
write.
not familiar with their words. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe afterwards I'll
Mhm.
send you maybe one or two books that they wrote
Yeah.
that I really enjoyed. Yeah. So
Right. Yeah.
coming back
You
to
know, the funny thing is, it's like I'm averse to. I'm really averse to
Nigerian writers,
Nigerian
are you serious?
writers more so than Ghanaian
Writers,
writers.
okay.
Yeah.
No, Nana and MP are doing really nice work. At least they are
Yeah.
Ghanaians I can
Okay.
point to. So coming
Hmm.
down to Nigeria, I
Hmm.
think I have to start with Kiru Tai because she gave me, I don't know if you know Kiru Tai's books.
No.
Okay.
No.
There's Kiru Tai. She's the
Yeah.
owner of Love Africa Press, and she has really encouraged
Okay.
a lot of Nigerian authors, independent, authors. She has this
Yeah.
independent publishing house, and a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
got our break through her. Let me put it that way. And she
Oh,
also
beautiful.
writes
Yeah.
some nice books. And there's Amaka Azie.
Okay.
There's Rosemary Okafor. Rosemary Okafor has been writing some real deep African books that I have to hand it to her. You know, there's Glory
I think
Abba.
they've done. Okay.
There's Glory Abba. I'll give you a list of these authors. I think you should check
I
them
am
out.
writing.
Yeah, so there's Glory
Yes,
Abba.
I'm writing.
There's
Mhm.
Timmy Waters. Timmy Waters just she's I don't know, she's just amazing. Who else can
Beautiful.
off the top of my head now? Tomilola Koko Adeyemi. She wrote this beautiful indigenous historical book that is fabulous. So I think what I'm going to do is after the interview, I'll give you a list of these authors and one book that I would recommend from each one of them. So there's a host of Nigerian indie authors that are coming out and they're
Yeah.
breaking barriers and doing amazing things. And sometimes people even
Yes.
prefer their stories to the traditionally published ones because most
Mhm.
traditionally published books are literary fiction. They're full of a lot of
Mhm.
drama, war, politics, and things that. And sometimes readers are just looking for light African reads that make them laugh.
Yes.
You know, and then
Yes. Yes. Yes.
because I'm also into fantasy, I love Tomi Adeyemi's work, Children of Blood and
Mhm.
Bone. I'm not sure if you're familiar. That's a really big
No.
book, Children of Blood and Bone, by Tomilola Adeyemi. She's a Nigerian American author, so she's based in the US, but she's an
She's based in.
international bestseller.
Okay. I think the other Nigerian based in the US, where is this book? Binti. It's the Binti series. That is more like an Afrofuturistic
Oh, okay. Nedi
collection.
Okorafor.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
That's the
Yes.
other
Yes.
Nigerian author I was gonna.
And I actually loved it.
Yes.
Like
It's
I
completely
bought all
different.
three and read all three. It is completely
Different.
different
Yeah.
because Afrofuturism is one other aspect that I am highly interested
And
in, and it is done so beautifully that it's like, oh wow,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And I
Hmm.
hear they are optioning her
Oh,
book for a movie. I think Who Fears Death.
oh, okay,
Yeah. But I don't know when it's coming out.
okay. We will be looking out for it. We will be looking out for it. Beautiful. This is so great. So whoever that is listening, I hope you got really good, how do you call it? Recommendations,
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
recommendations from these beautiful authors. Just list them, Google it, and you'll find them. These days, the internet is everywhere, so you cannot miss it. Yeah, my dear. There's this burning question I want to ask you.
Yikes.
Your mother, you work full time as a physiotherapist.
Yes, I do.
You are a full time mother.
Yes, I am.
You are a full time wifey. And to write, you need time.
Exactly. How am I balancing the whole thing?
Over to you, my sister.
Wow, it's a question I ask myself every day because sometimes I'm just exhausted. Like today, I finished the almost like an 8 9 hour shift. So when I got home, I was so tired, but I was like, no, I made up my mind that I was going to be on this show today. So you need to get rid of the tiredness. It's challenging actually because I find that I call it physio my day job and then I call writing my night
Yes.
job. Then in between, I try to sort the family. So you see me sleep a bit, then wake up around 12 and then do my writing when it's nice and quiet. There's no, mommy, I
Yes.
need this. And there's no, hey, wifey, go and make me pepper soup. So it's challenging because sometimes, you now have to snatch time from time that you would have spent with friends and family, and then trying to, get that story out, because during the day I may be seeing a patient as a physiotherapist, and then my mind is on this story idea that I want to quickly pen down. And then my mind is just like, it's a struggle to keep my mind on what the patient is saying, because I really want to go do this. So it's a balancing act, and God has been merciful, let me say, to me. So I snatch time. In Nigeria we have a lot of public holidays, so I make
Yes,
use of those public holidays.
of the public
Yes,
holidays. Wow, that is so beautiful. That is beautiful. So now, this is a question that I'm going to ask you. For the most part, um, when women are writers and achieving and being so much just like yourself, which I believe it's a beautiful thing, because I know African women, Black women, there's so much in us and passion to create. But sometimes our circumstances or the support systems do not favor us.
yeah, yeah.
How is your husband supporting you in this journey?
Wow. Well, I'll say in the earlier um, part of our marriage, he was always working out of the home, and he was always
Hmm.
traveling, and it was a struggle. I don't think I did much
Hmm.
writing back then. I would just pen some things, but it wasn't serious. And the kids were younger, so it
Hmm.
was a tough one. So I relied a lot on my mom. That's one thing we have back
Hmm.
here, that I know that my friends
Yes.
that are in Western countries complain about that. Hey, you guys have help, we
Yes.
don't. So I relied on
Yes.
my mom a lot.
Yes.
When I wanted to take a break, I would just take all the kids, bundle them, their clothes, everything, drop them off with my mom, like 1 week or 2 weeks, and then I have breathing space. And then, but now that I think ever since the COVID happened, and people found out that they could
Hmm.
work from home, my husband kind
Yes.
of like switched. He runs his own business as well, so he decided to work from home, and all his staff work from home. So it's made things a lot
Hmm.
better, because right now they're on summer holidays. The kids are on summer holidays, and he stays home
Yes.
all day. He's with them, and I can go and
Hmm.
do my work. So that's how we've been able to balance it. Initially, pre-COVID, it was a
Wow.
struggle. I did most of everything, but now,
Yes.
the roles are reversed. So it's been a big
So he
help.
encourages you in
Yes,
this writing
yes. I
journey.
would
Good.
always say that every woman should make sure that they get, you know, start a relationship. You're looking to get married. It has to be with someone who supports you as a woman, who encourages your dream, who allows you to be
Hmm.
all that, you know, you can
You
be,
can be.
and all that. So,
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much. This is a very important, advice, because sometimes you jump into a relationship and then at the end of the day, it's like, what the heck? Who is this? I don't know who this person is.
yes,
And
yes,
you feel, as a writer, your very core or essence of being, which is writing, your creativity is under attack.
yeah, yeah.
So, do you stay or do you leave? So, your advice is very important. If you are a female or even male, if you are an individual going into a relationship, a long term relationship, you got to make sure that whoever that your partner is understands your creativity
Yes.
and will support you to, because we need people, we need authors like yourself to
To
encourage us
encourage,
and
yeah,
to actually, yes, to encourage to rewrite the African narrative,
yes.
because many of us, our authors and books were coming from outside telling us, stories
That we
that
couldn't
sometimes we
relate to.
couldn't.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you this. When I did literature in high school, we were reading Jane Austen. Now, Jane Austen was talking about, like the summer, the fall, snow. Girl, I
Like,
have no
what is that?
idea. I see mango trees and neem trees
Yeah,
and guava trees and monkeys jumping from. I don't know what summer is. I don't know what the fall looks like. I don't know all these things. It took me to traveling to North America before
yeah,
all
that's
these the setting made sense for
it's
me.
true. It's true.
But when I'm reading, like one of the authors I interviewed earlier, Tales of Jidofor by,
Okay.
oh Lord, I just, yes. When when I was reading the book, it's like I could walk those steps.
Yeah,
I could see myself within the setting and I could relate
to
to
it.
that setting.
Yeah,
Yes. But when I was reading Jane Austen and everything during those times of my Ghana, I couldn't relate to her, to walking about. Now I may be because I
about
live
it's
here,
true.
so I know what the setting is about. I say for our young folks coming up, I really do encourage them to read and also to read authors like yourself who are writing from an
Hmm.
African perspective, situated within an African setting. Publishing. You did mention that.
Ah,
This
publishing.
is where I go. My sister, talk to me. Publishing.
Ah,
Writing is not the problem. Oh, editing
it's
and
the publishing
publishing
and the marketing.
and the
Ah,
marketing. Tell
it's
me,
it's it's
how is it in
ah
life? Wahala.
I will not lie. Wahala, yes.
Then let's
But
break down
but
the wahala.
like I said, I'd initially tried applying, sending my manuscripts to traditional publishers, and they will say, "Oh, take this out, change this, or this is not right for us now," or you simply won't even hear back from them.
Anything? Yes,
And
yes.
then I don't know, I just took a chance. I saw Love Africa Publishing, just like I took a chance. I saw your message and I was like, oh, let me go for it. So
Yeah.
I and when I heard back from Love Africa Publishing, I was
Mhm.
like, I was jumping up and down in my room, like, oh, finally. It was such a happy
Yeah.
thing. And it's been good so far because it got me to meet other authors,
Mm-hmm.
also got me a little bit more publicity, kind
Mm-hmm.
of like. And but I think initially when I started, I was doing more of ebook publishing.
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to save my money. So I went on Okada Books, and
Yeah.
then I didn't even know too much about publishing. I was just like I said, I was really busy with the kids and work, and my husband was always traveling. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really have time. I just wrote. So I think my first published book before I got the contract with Love Africa Press
Mm-hmm.
was Love's Indenture, that story about the
Yeah.
girl her father
Yeah.
married her off.
Yeah.
So I just wrote the book, and it was Christmas, and I was
Mm-hmm.
bored. I said, okay, let me look at this Okada book, something. Let me just put up my book without editing, without anything. It was just editing that I'd done myself. And then all of a sudden, the same day, I'd gotten 3 downloads. Then by the
Yeah.
next day, 10 downloads. And then I was hitting like
Oh,
$200. Like, what's going on?
like, okay. I
Yeah.
mean,
So
people are hungry.
yes,
People
that's
are
what
hungry.
just like you said, people want to
Yes.
see themselves represented in books. They want to see names that they can appreciate,
Relate
things
to.
that,
Yeah.
situations that they can relate
Yes.
to. At the same time, they want light, airy reads, not,
Yes.
I, I give all kudos to Chimamanda Adichie, and all the
Yes.
other literary fiction writers,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
Nigeria is a serious country. A lot of serious things happen every day. So you want something that will just, take you out of where you're living and, give you that kind of escape, kind of like.
Yes.
So I discovered that. So I started to publish on Okada Books, and then when I heard about BAM Books, I also decided to put my books, and then I went to Amazon. Then we
Yeah.
had the contract with Love Africa Publishing, and then I printed
Mhm.
my first book before I now independently published Ayofe, which is yeah.
Yay! I know.
Yeah,
Ayofe. Oh my
yeah.
goodness, girl.
So
This has been a blast. This has been a blast.
yeah,
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Now, before we leave, um, what do you have for young, readers, writers? Because I know in Ghana, the Ghana Writers Association, or the Pan African Writers Association, Power, GAO and Power, I think so, yeah,
okay.
are working tediously to get the youth involved and reading African.
Reading.
Yes, yes. Because social media is a thing that takes away from, people are looking at TikTok and YouTube shorts and
Yeah,
all these things. That is okay, but when it comes to the love of reading, it is a struggle. And for those that want to be authors or writers, if you have a message of you know
of encouragement, because yes, like you said, it's TikTok, social media generally has shortened the attention span, I
Mhm,
think, for the average individual in the world today. So people want shorter, lighter, straight to the point kind of writing. But you'd be surprised that there's still a bulk of people out there who don't mind reading the long form, who don't
mhm,
mind getting lost in novels. So if you
mhm,
are a budding writer, I think you should just go for it,
mhm,
because limiting yourself and saying, "Oh, you don't know how you'll be perceived," is one of the things that held me back for a very
mhm,
long time. And I
mhm,
realized that the world wants to read what you have to write. So you should go ahead and do it. But at the same time, I would also suggest that people should learn the art of writing. I'm
mhm,
still learning, even though I published a couple of books. I am still learning every day, and the
mhm.
only way I learned, how I learned to write, was to read
Yes.
other writers, and read wide. It's not only in the genre that I write. I read action thrillers, I read romance, I read detective, mystery, literary fiction, even though
Mhm,
I don't really like reading, but I still read it because there's so much that you can learn from every
mhm,
genre. And
mhm,
also, there's so many workshops that you can take advantage of. There are so many people who are doing great things to bring writers together. Like
mhm,
there's Ife Adigo Publishers, who helped publish Ayofe. They
mhm,
have a Facebook like group where they're
mhm,
teaching people how to write. You can
mhm,
post samples of your writing, and then there are people who will critique, read,
mhm,
give you ideas. And the only way you grow is when you put your work out there. So if you're a writer or you're looking to write, you need to put your work out there. And if you are a reader, please, please, I know that the attention span has shortened. Everybody wants like 2 minutes, but
mhm.
there's something to be gained from reading. I tell my kids will come up to me and say, "Mommy, I'm bored." And I'm like, I don't think I ever heard that word. I mean, I don't think I uttered that word
No,
growing up. There's no
that that
boredom. You just pick
that
a book.
is a yes. Hmm.
It is
It is
it's
a
something we fight.
generational thing. Yes, yes.
Yes, and I tell them, look, I have a whole library of books. You guys are on summer holiday. Don't tell me you are bored. Enough
Yes,
watching TV. Go and pick the books. And when you read, your vocabulary grows,
yes,
your writing skills grows, your ability to craft words. And
yes.
there are multiple streams of income in writing. You've got the editing, you've got
Mhm,
uh screenwriting, you've got what else? It's off the top of my, there's marketing, there's the cover design, so many
yes,
aspects to it that
yes,
you can plug
yes.
into and make
Mhm,
money from. And there's
mhm.
some people that make money just better reading
Yes.
works, like always ensure that if you're a writer, and that was one thing I didn't do when I started off. It's a
Mm,
mistake I made, and I've learned,
mm,
when you write a novel or you're done with a work, it's best to give it to someone to read, plots,
yes,
the plot holes or things that you missed
yes,
out. So now, even with Ayo Fair, I don't think I did enough as I would have wanted to. But now I know
yes.
how important, how critical, it is to
That
ensure that
is,
that is done. Yeah. So
yes.
I think
Oh
that's
wow.
my everything.
No, girl, I think you have to. It feels like a master class.
Wow.
It
Thank you.
feels like you just gave us a master class
Yeah,
with
thank you.
this. It is really, really great, impactful, and I do surely hope that people will gain from it as I have. You realize that as you were speaking, I was writing notes.
Some things, yeah.
Every day I learn
Learn,
from
yeah.
you guys. Every day I learn from you guys. One of the lessons I also learned is that if you can't find that story, if nobody has written it,
Then
write
write
it.
it. Yes, that's very
Yes.
true.
If
Very
nobody
true.
has written it, then write the story you would love to
To
read.
read. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Olufunmilola, thank you so much for coming on the Nana Yaa Yeboaa Show. Guys, we've come to the end. We will see you with another author from Nigeria, I believe. I don't remember the name, but you know what I mean. Yes.
Okay.
That's so, listen, good things are coming out of the continent of Africa, and it looks like Nigeria is leading the way. So I think my next question is, where are the Ghanaians?
But I just gave you two Ghanaians.
You just gave me two, so go look for them.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Guys, if you've not subscribed, please do subscribe to this show and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. And we will give more information on Olufunmilola, aka
Feyi
Feyi
Aina.
Ani. I Yes, yes. Our beautiful author and our conversationalist today.
Yeah.